Well, good afternoon. I want to welcome you to another conversation on showing up for kids. Very excited for the conversation that we're going to have today, but I do want to remind you of a couple of things. First of all, my name's Tim Markle. I work with the Southern Regional Center for Children and Youth with Special Healthcare Needs, and we're out of the WIVA Center. We are being recorded this morning, so please watch what you say in terms of private health information or anything that you don't want known. The recording will be posted online, which we know once something is out on the web, it can never be taken down ever again. It is there forever. So be aware of what you are saying. We also are not offering this as a replacement for any medical information, any educational or any legal information. We are just having a conversation. And so please take it for what it's worth. Today, I am really excited to welcome in Andrea Schmidt. Andrea is the 504 coordinator for WIVA, and we're also going to be talking with Amanda Maedke. This is where I really need to figure out people's names beforehand. So Amanda Maedke, who is the lead special education teacher for WIVA. We know that during this time of coronavirus, that children with special needs are used to attending school in person, but now they're at home without the support of their physical IEP team. And so I thought it would be interesting to have a conversation with special educators who are doing virtual special education all the time. And so wanted somebody from the Wisconsin Virtual Academy to come in. So I'm really happy that Andrea and Amanda could join me today. So we're gonna bring them on and they're gonna unmute their mics, and we're just gonna start with, so can you give us just a brief overview about how WIVA or virtual schools in general do special education? Do they have to have IEPs? Do they have assessments? Do they have meetings? What do they do?
Sorry, trying to get to my mic. Yeah, so I'm Andrea Schmidt. I'm the 504 coordinator at WIVA, as Tim mentioned. We are a public school through McFarland School District. So we do follow all the rules, regulations, all the laws relating to special education and the 504 rules and regulations as well. So that is there. We do IEPs. We hold all the meetings, very similar to brick and mortar schools. So we do complete everything that they would have in a brick and mortar as far as paperwork and meetings we do as well. So as I said, I am specifically I work with 504. So any students who need that plan would be me. And then Amanda is our lead special education teacher. So I will go ahead and let her talk about the special ed piece of that.
Hi, everyone. So as Tim had mentioned, my name is Amanda Maedke. I have been with Wisconsin Virtual Academy for 4 years. Previous to that, I did teach in a brick and mortar school in my area. So we are all certified through the state of Wisconsin with teaching license in our area. As far as special education students, we serve students K through 12th grade and with a variety of needs ranging from speech and language. We have students who have related services like occupational therapy or specially designed PE. And a range of academic needs as well that we can support.
So I'm assuming you don't have like a physical therapist that drives around and shows up in people's driveways. How are you providing occupational physical therapy, speech therapy to these families across Wisconsin?
Yeah, and that's a great question. So we do have the occasional few who, as an IEP team, it was determined that maybe they do need it face-to-face, and then that's held at a community location. But for the majority of our students, we are able to meet their needs within a virtual platform. I'm so sorry, my dog is ringing his doorbell to go outside. So we can meet a variety of student needs through a virtual platform using Zoom. We have our own platform as well that we use through K-12, which WIVA is a K-12 powered school that's a national company. But they have a platform that we can utilize to interact with students on webcams, chatting, microphone, through interactive on the web board. So there's a lot of ways that we can really engage and interact with our students to meet all of their needs.
So with that virtual delivery, what's the role of the parents in special education? Because right now we have a lot of parents that are probably, they know about special education, but the whole ins and outs of what gets done each and every day is entirely new. So how are parents involved in this system?
I will say that in our setting, especially, the parent plays a crucial role. They are always an important part of an IEP team, but especially when we are looking in the virtual setting, they are the eyes and ears a lot of times, when we're not in sessions together. So they really help to paint that full picture of kind of what's going on as the student is schooling, kind of what's going on as the student is working on schoolwork, what are some of those behaviors or needs that they're seeing. And then as the special educator, I can kind of bring that lens of education and how can we work together to meet some of those needs that the parent is seeing that maybe they don't necessarily know how to best support or to work through, or what is rigorous for my student, kind of some of that educational piece of it. So it really is a partnership where this parent has this knowledge that we just don't have by working with their student, by being their parent. And so it really allows us to build a collaborative relationship where we're trying to figure out what's best for that student.
And Amanda, how do you do that? Because you're not running into them as they're dropping their kids off. How do you build that relationship with those parents?
A lot of communication. I spend a lot of time on my phone. I spend a lot of time emailing. I think being available to my parents and to the students as often as I can. A majority of my parents have my cell phone number. Some of our staff use like a Google text to interact with parents or communicate with them. I think being available is important to have those regular conversations. We have those conversations at our IEP meetings. Email check-ins happen daily, weekly. So there are so many ways, but I think just being available and starting that dialogue is where that relationship builds.
Yeah, and I want to add, I think communication is really a key piece in when learning virtually like this, because as she's mentioned, we don't see that student face-to-face on a daily basis, or actually rarely at all. Every once in a while, a student might hop on a camera, but for the most part, we're not seeing them, and we don't kind of see what it looks like at home for them. So, making sure that both the student and the parent are participating in that communication, back and forth. Like she said, we really strive to make sure communication is one of our most important aspects. We're always trying to reach out and connecting with families to make sure that those needs are getting met. So I would say on the parent end, that is really important. A really important job for them is to do that communicating with us.
And I'm assuming that with that whole communication, I mean, it's great to have those sort of the call-out therapy sessions and to work on those skills, but it's also important that those skills are practiced in the regular school setting during math class, during English. How do you communicate with the special education department and the regular education department and the parents and the students without anybody being together?
That's a great question. So we have, because we are designed to be a virtual school, we have platforms and things in place that allow us to share information internally so that that relevant information, regarding accommodations for students can be communicated out easily to all teachers or who might work with that student. But there's also that, that communication piece that we talked about with the parent, where sometimes too, we may be providing the parent with ideas or solutions, and checking in with them as well about, hey, why don't you try this? You know, kind of that back and forth of sharing information. This is what I'm seeing. Why don't we try this? How did that work? And kind of getting everybody involved. And so I think, you know, a big piece of our ability to communicate amongst each other is we are a virtual school, and so we have been designed to allow that sharing of information with the people who need it.
Cool. And through your experience and through the platforms, I know there's some differences with virtual school. And full disclosure, my son went to WIVA for years and was in special education. So full disclosure, I have a kind of a fine relationship with WIVA. I kind of like them. But do you have anything that you know of, Amanda or Andrea, between Special Education 504, that you think WIVA has learned throughout the years that might be able to help those parents who have children in special education that are now at home trying to learn on a virtual platform? You know, I don't want to go into best practices and research unless you have best practices research. Just ideas, helpful hints, something that has been working for WIVA families that might be able to work for the rest of us.
Yeah, so Amanda's been there longer. This is my first year at WIVA, so I'm kind of learning the ins and outs of virtual school, and so far I absolutely love it. But for me, I mean, communication really is the key piece in my area and what I do. So as I've, you know, become much more comfortable in it, I think that's really grown in the amount of communication that I have between families and teachers. And as well as, I know Amanda mentioned the different types of communication. You know, I have Google Voice so we can text, but I choose to use voice so that, you know, I can turn it off in the evenings if I have family time or whatnot, or email or phone calls or video chats like this. So for me, I've learned that really communication is the key piece in what I do.
Yeah, so I feel like I have a little bit of a unique perspective because I have two children who go to our local school district, and as many of you are now home. And so I, like you, am trying to also juggle possibly a job. You know, my virtual school, we are schooling daily, unaffected, but I have two children who are home. And so I see a lot of, you know, that struggle too. My son has a 504. And so as I work with him in trying to figure out, like, how can I help? I know I was a part of these meetings. I know, you know, I know what you need, but gosh, how do I balance all of this? And so I think the biggest thing as a parent is just reaching out and communicating. So, you know, I have been emailing with his teacher, like you know, just even letting her know, I read this to him. I just need you to know that. Or, you know, I told him it says 5 sentences, but I told him to write 3 because that's all we could get to today. So I think just being transparent, being honest, and asking for help if you're not sure how to do, or, you know, if your child is having a moment and they just don't want to do something, you know, reaching out to the teacher, the special ed teacher, the general ed teacher, just, hey, like, this is not happening. Can you help me find some middle ground? Because as a teacher, I don't know what's going on the other side unless somebody tells me. So I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned since working at WIVA, and then also being a parent and trying to live it at home now as well. You know, I don't know what my son or my daughter's teachers are expecting, and I don't know how to help if I don't reach out and ask. So I think that is huge to kind of help support your children and cut yourself some slack as well. I think that's another thing that I learned as well. It's okay to be flexible.
Thank you both so much for the conversation so far. And is there any sort of resources or any places that you generally point parents to, or is it all pretty much once they're part of WIVA, they then access resources? I'm just wondering if there's anything that you could share with me later that I could share with the families, or go-to resources, websites, helpful hints, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so we are very fortunate that our program is very comprehensive and designed to be online, but especially for our students with special education, right? There's always that one-off situation or unique thing where you're trying to figure out how do I make this work? How can I adapt to this? So I'm always looking for resources. I actually got a resource this morning and I thought, oh gosh, I should share this today at our meeting. It is a website of virtual manipulatives. And so, I thought, oh gosh, this is so cool. How did I never find this before? There's tried and true websites that, can give you just kind of a good example of content. Teachers Pay Teachers has free stuff. It's not always good free stuff, but there's free stuff there that, if you're trying to find some sort of resource, I'll usually look on there for things as well. There's ABC, yeah, my daughter, Raz Kids has great reading books and things. And I would guess a lot of your school districts will have subscriptions to some of those things as well. And so your child likely already has access to them. It's just a matter of figuring out how to get like those login information, how to get to those websites and things like that too.
Which goes back to that communication. This is what I think my kid needs. How can you help me find it at his or her level? Where the teacher has no idea what the parent's looking for unless the parent voices it, and vice versa. Sometimes all human beings have issues communicating. And what we think is a really clear email, by the time it gets read at 7:30 at night, can get very confusing. And so being open to explaining, oh, I could see where you thought that I was asking for a 40-page thesis. What I'm really looking for is a 4-sentence thought. I know email could get confusing. And so being open to that dialogue. Did you really mean for us to do this? What is the point? Being willing to ask the question, what is the point of this assignment? And having the teacher have an answer. Because I think very few assignments, the point is to turn in work. I believe it's learning something. And so what is the goal? What are we trying to learn? And how can we get there together? That neither one of us has the full picture, that we need each other.
And that's a great point to bring up, in the areas that we work, especially, with me with the 504, when students aren't understanding something and they need an accommodation or need something modified, for a parent to reach out and ask that question, what is the purpose of this? What should we be getting? Because then, that can also help us if we need to adjust something or make an accommodation elsewhere. Maybe they can present it in a different format. Instead of writing a paper, they can make a PowerPoint if we know what the issue is, where the concern lies.
Thank you. And I would love to, this has always been designed to be a forum for conversations, which is also a little scary because I never know exactly what people are going to ask. But we now encourage you to either use the chat feature. We have people that are looking at the chat feature. If you have questions that you would like to bring up in chat, or feel free to unmute yourself and ask Amanda and Andrea, Amanda or Andrea, or both, a question. So we can have this sort of dialogue about what's going on out there. What questions do you kind of have out there, or what have been your observations? I know some of the people on the line are educators, and I know some of the people on the line are family members. And so I really, what are you guys thinking about now that you've heard from WIVA? 3 more seconds, it's going to be awkward.
So they're wondering about the online manipulatives?
Okay, so Amanda, can you send me those websites afterwards, and I will send them out to everybody who's on the call?
Yeah, here, I think I might even be able to put it in the chat box. I kind of left it open in my in the
browser, yeah.
Yeah, so that I could remember to share it. So yeah,
Great.
so there's that.
Toytheater.com. Interesting. That, I mean, that sounds like a fun website anyway.
Yeah, and I would say, another teacher emailed it to me and said, "Hey, I think you might find this interesting." And so, so many things come across my desk in that way. So it's nice to be able to share them out.
And that's, I was talking with another family member this morning, and we were talking about how the fact that everything still kind of feels overwhelming, but now we also have all sorts of resources that people are giving us as well, which is also overwhelming. And so we're overwhelmed, being overwhelmed, trying to figure out how not to be overwhelmed while not wanting to miss what could be that important thing. And so that's where I think your advice of, we need to calm down sometimes and give ourselves a break is really important. We're not going to be able to digest everything that's being thrown at us. It's impossible. We do the best that we can based on our kids' needs and our kids' strengths. Other questions, comments?
I've got one question. I'm just curious, like, what's your student load? And do you end up, I know because everyone's home now, like our daughter does homework like throughout the day, all day and into the evening. Do you guys end up on in your regular work life? Do you have to work in the evenings to help families, or is it mostly during the day?
That's a good question. So in my current position, I do not have a caseload. I strictly help special education teachers figure out the best way to meet student needs. But previous to this position, I did have a caseload at WIVA, and I want to say around 25 was my caseload, which I think is higher than a traditional brick and mortar setting. But we continue to grow. We continue to meet student needs. I think the nice thing is that for the majority of our students and for our staff, we are all committed to, for the most part, being available from 8 to 4:30 Monday through Friday. And so I am able to meet the majority of my students' needs, any questions within that time frame. But as I mentioned earlier, and I think because personally to me, that communication is crucial. I do have my email on my phone. I do, have calls that get forwarded to my cell phone. And I think, our families are very respectful and understanding that we are also working from home and that we have families and things as well. So very seldom do I get those, but I do want to be available to our students. And I know, especially thinking about our high school population, a lot of them have jobs or things that are going on where their schedule does look a little bit differently than that 8 to 4:30. And so I know for teachers at that level wanting to be available to their students is important. So I think that there's that balance that we all try to do regardless of the job that we have, where we do that home life balance.
Yeah, and then in my position, working with students with 504, so I have about 90 students with a 504, which is more on my caseload than a special education teacher. But on the other hand, I do not provide specialized instruction. So it may seem like a lot of students for one person, but I am not working with them within the classroom at all. So my job consists of a lot of checking in with parents and families if there's a concern, and they come to me, kind of working on how to figure out, find a good solution, connecting with teachers to see if needs are being met, if we need to adjust anything, if teachers have questions on, how do I make this accommodation? I'm not sure how I can, reduce this, or what is the other option. So as far as hours, I am available, like Amanda said, in the evening. If something does come through, we do know that a lot of our parents aren't home with the students all day long to help them. So sometimes the evening is just a better time to connect with parents. So we do that also, but.
Any other questions, comments? All right, then I would like to immensely thank Andrea and Amanda for taking time out of your schedules today to be with us. Really appreciate the information and the hints, and we will, I'll be following up with Amanda on just a couple of the other websites that she had mentioned. We'll get them out onto the listserv. You will also be receiving a feedback form so that you can help us continue to do these conversations if you find them interesting and valuable. We'll let you give feedback on what you would like us to talk about. I'm through with May, going into June. Need to get topics for June, so please let us know. But thank you all so very much. We appreciate you being here and appreciate everything you're doing for your kiddos or the kiddos that you are trying to teach. Again, Amanda and Andrea, thank you so very much for being here. Hope everybody has a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for having us.
Yes, thank you.